society, I think has us on a pretty good hamster wheel.
High obesity rates among American children.
Where do you wake up and say something is wrong with the way we raise our kids?
Part of our culture, right? You don't love a kid unless you give them diabetes. We're at a point in society where I'm wrong because I want to protect my kids' health. I'm only right if I want to give them 138 grams of sugar after eating pizza and bread.
Why do you think more people don't adopt a system like yours?
A lot of reasons, and I wish I could get into them all in depth, but
We have time.
The world has been trained to make everything as easy as possible. The way you eat is a form of self-respect. We are human beings. We are not made to endure the amount that we eat in this, especially in this country. If I raise my kids the same way I was raised, I'm raising them for a completely different world. I'm not setting them up for success. I hope my kids don't listen to this for at least 8 years. But I'd be lying if I told you that I'd be devastated if my kids didn't want to go to college.
What do you think is the biggest threat facing our children today?
I mean, I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist enough to believe this, but
Before we start today's episode, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day and giving this podcast to listen. And I also wanted to remind you that the only way this podcast will ever grow is with your support and with your help. So subscribe to the podcast, like this video, and now let's get the show started. Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى
طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب
مدينة القدس العربية.
Hey Fouad, how are you?
hey, Jafar.
Welcome to Not From Here.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. First, I want you to introduce yourself, but I want you to introduce yourself as if you're looking in the mirror. Who is Fouad to Fouad?
Sure. Who is Fouad to Fouad? Wow. I get to speak in the third person here.
Yeah.
Fouad is a complicated, simple person. Always want to reach bigger, start new trends, capitalize on and just see, can I reach higher potential? The most important things to me, it's kind of like the 4 F's: family, faith, fitness, finance. And what's really important for me, and everybody hears me kind of talk about this all the time, is 1% better every day. And that's a cumulative score across those 4 F's. And so some days, your fitness and your finances might both be trending upwards, and your family and your faith might have kind of dwindled. Maybe today you forgot to make those phone calls to your family. Maybe today you forgot to be a little bit more remembering and thankful and forgiving, or whatever it might be, right? So tomorrow you might strengthen those, and by strengthening those, the others may have come down a little bit. So it's a formula, and it's a never-ending battle to get better all the time at all four of those, right? And so 1% better every day.
Nice. I like that. So basically you're juggling those when one day something is going up, another is going down, and that's how it is with all of us, right?
It is, and it's interesting because and by the way, it's evolving forever. It never is. You almost have to kind of take a weekly or monthly look at your equation and what's important, because your needs are changing. If you're married, your spouse's needs are changing. If you're a child to elderly parents, or just parents that need more love from you, kind of whatever it might be, that's evolving. Then you have kids like me. My kids are 8, 7, and 4, and so just depending on the day and the hour and the week and the year, all of those things. So, it's really important.
Do you think a lot of people are looking into their lives that detailed on a monthly basis?
I don't think so. And,
why don't you think people are doing that more often?
I think the society, I get pretty philosophical, this about society. Ahead. And society, I think, has us on a pretty good hamster wheel. And that's okay. By the way, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. When you find comfort in your life, that's really important too. I think it's really important for each individual to just look at their goals and what their objectives are. And I didn't used to be this maniacal about growth. I have an amazing wife who's a very determined individual, and being around her, just like anything, like in sports, you're around people that are working really hard. It's really important to keep up with your team, And so I know she drives really, really hard in some ways. I drive really hard in some ways. And I think we both really balance each other from that perspective. But it's watching her entrepreneurial spirit and then me leaving corporate America, which I was, I was grateful and lucky to be a part of for 20 years because it taught me a lot. But when you leave, you realize how much control you have over your time and your life. And, you can only hang out with your friends so much. You can only play so many rounds of golf. You can only waste so much time before you realize, man, like there's some emptiness here I got to fulfill.
Yeah.
And that's when I got entrepreneurial. I left corporate in 2019. Got entrepreneurial, and the more I realize is, the entrepreneurial, you have to make money. That's how you pay bills. That's how you achieve goals and do all these things. But you can't make the impact that you want to make without making money, right? And to me, that's I'm on a mission to help as many people be on a path to leave W-2 world the way I did, right? So I was there for 20 years, grateful, loved my job. It was incredible, but I knew there was more for me than the cap and the ceiling that corporate puts on your growth potential. And so when I left corporate, that's where I saw myself going, and then I realized I can help other people get on this path, because leaving corporate doesn't have to mean making the decision that you're going to leave corporate doesn't have to mean I'm leaving in 3 months.
Yeah.
It can mean I want to leave in 8 years when I'm still in my 40s, right? It doesn't mean I have to retire at 65, but I need to be on a plan. And what are you doing? So a long answer to my whole societal thing. Are you coming home from work and then hitting Netflix for 2 hours and then putting your kids to sleep and hitting Netflix for another hour? What are the habits? What are the self habits and the more and more I looked at myself in the mirror and saw all this time that I was wasting in my life with these things, it was like, I need to start pouring back into myself a little bit. And that's when I really took control over my passion for growth.
Yeah. How did you end up here in America?
Well, I was born here. My parents were my parents moved here, so I'm first generation. My parents met here, actually. My father, they both moved to Toledo, Ohio, and my mom moved there with her sister, who was married. So she moved here with her sister and her husband. My mom is one of 12 children in their family.
Wow.
And then my father moved here. And when he was here, he went to visit them because he was friends with my mother's brother-in-law.
Okay.
And so they were, hanging out, and that's how they met. So they were married here. And but that was in Toledo, Ohio. I was born in Toledo, Ohio. Then we moved to Dallas, Texas, and we moved to St. Louis, Missouri. So I grew up in the South in America. And then when I was 9 years old is when we moved up here to Michigan. But then I was in Rochester Hills from second grade. I forgot how old you are in second grade, 8 years old. Maybe I have my age is wrong. Seven. So we moved up here when I was 7, and we were there from 7 till I got married. And when I got married, I was 26. I moved here to Dearborn, and so that's how I got to Dearborn. So I'm kind of like not from here twice.
Yeah,
almost.
But you grew up in up until you were 26, predominantly white areas, correct?
Yeah, white America for the most part. Yep.
How was that like, having Arab parents that are first generation immigrants, living in white America?
Like anything, it's got its advantages and disadvantages, because we could certainly probably name some disadvantages about living amongst just Arab too, right? Especially living in a non-Arab country, maybe. It probably made it easier for me to transition into corporate America than maybe having migrated here and living straight in Dearborn. It probably made it very easy for me to relate to, to the policy, to the culture, I would tell you, because of where we grew up much more cultured than we did probably spiritual. So my parents, and right, wrong, or indifferent, right? I don't know if there's a right answer here, but, my parents were really protective of us not losing that Lebanese culture.
How did they do that?
We spent a lot of summers in Lebanon. I mean, it was like school's out, you're going to Lebanon kind
Yeah.
of thing. So we did that growing up quite a bit. Spoke Arabic in the house. And then, what's beautiful about our community is that wherever you go, there's a community, whether it's a small one, a big one. So
Yeah.
there was a Lebanese community even where we were, and we befriended and assimilated to those. And I think that was it, really. I mean, and other than that, they just parented. They leaned in on their parenting, something that I think sadly lacks in society today.
Yeah.
But that was important, as they were very hands-on as parents.
Did you feel like there was big contrast from being in Dallas and then going to Lebanon for a month or so? Like, were you able to feel the difference?
Yeah. No, I mean, it starts with the language.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean, you learn real quickly when we would spend 2.5 months there. So, I mean, you learn pretty quickly the language. Then you learn the way of life, and then 9 to 5 versus everybody's getting together for lunch over there, and dinners are at 9 p.m. and 10 p.m., right? And so the lifestyle, the culture is very different. And boy, if you wake up with a stomach ache there, you get 38 phone calls by 11 a.m. with whoever wants to bring you soup, and they're all going to bring you something. And so the family values are very different. The culture is very different, and you're quickly, and it's amazing, and you fall in love with that family lifestyle, right? So I think that's the main differences. Values are just very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're big on raising your kids in a specific way, and we've talked about this off camera multiple times, and we're going to get into all of that. But first, I want you to tell me, where do you wake up and say something is wrong with the way we raise our kids? Something is off, and I'm gonna do things differently with my kids. Is it after you get your kids? Do you realize that when maybe your parents did something specific and you were like, yeah, I don't think this is the right way, they should have did it? Or where does that start for you?
For me, I've looked for years. One thing I don't do is I'm not a knee-jerk reactor to like the things that the media publishes and the things that are in the news and the things that really scare us into the ways that we live our lives, right? And so I've kind of seen the world, my generation has been a huge part of the world to go from where we were when we were young, where it was, God, I mean, the world has changed in so many ways. I mean, we had 2 genders back in the day. We had, for the most part, straight marriages, and and all religions and all faiths and all cultures really bought into that system because it's what their book told them. By the way, not saying that it's each person's choices, but all I'm coloring here is the changes that have come in society. So it started there. We've gone from, bikes in the neighborhood to devices in the basement. That's how kids went from spending their day when I was young to how there's just so many things that have happened. And then COVID obviously exacerbated so much of this technology boom that we've seen coming for a long time. Remote work is becoming a more permanent thing. Individuals stripping families of their values and really making life very independent, right? Yeah. So this is where the world has changed. And I think I noticed these patterns really early on growing up. I noticed the conversation about mental health didn't used to be so large and in charge. And not that it's not a problem. It's certainly a problem. Obviously, it's a problem because of all the things that we see, a lot of things that we see in the world, from school shootings to church shootings to all these things. And I still remember it pretty vividly. It all kind of started with the Colorado school shooting, and that was in the I think early mid 90s, and It went really to, that's when the conversation of mental health really started coming up.
What happened
mass
there?
shootings. There was a school shooting in Colorado, and it really brought up the whole conversation around, mental health. That's really where this whole thing blew up.
Oh, okay.
And ever since then, you saw it just become more and more prevalent in society. So where do these things all come from? Where do people, I grew up in a very, I would call it a very, what I would hope is a very average and normal, upbringing, which is two parents that are loving in a household. And I know divorce rates are way higher today than they were then, but again, just going back to where did societal changes come from? And I started picking up on all these changes that happened and all these behaviors that people thought the whole world had to change. And it was like, boy, if we put that much energy into just telling people to lean into their parenting a little bit more, take control.
So this is all before you even got married.
Yeah.
You were just started picking that stuff up.
I kind of knew. And then obviously you ebb and flow as you have kids. You start raising your kids, and then you really start to realize with you and your spouse, where are the differences? For instance, as you know, one of the things that I'm crazy and maniacal about is the nutrition and the intake that our kids have, right? And we have a whole system around this.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, so we have a whole system. And how did the system develop? Our system, real quickly, it's 4 cheats a week, Sunday through Saturday. It starts on Sunday morning, goes through Saturday. How you use your cheats, it's up to you. 1 piece of candy, 1 piece of cake, that's 1 cheat, whatever it is. And so I can't say no. And this all started because early on when we had kids, it was like we have all our family around and, and they're always giving our kids, and because, it's part of our culture, right? You don't love a kid unless you give them diabetes, apparently. And it's societal, it's cultural, it's all that. But when you have that much family always around, it's not 1 piece of candy a day, it's 365 for the year, and then multiply that by 8 family members, and it's just it's got a bad spiral. It's got a bad story at the end of it for our kids' health, right? So that was something that really caught me from the beginning.
How did you come up with that system?
Well, so it really caught me because I was always no and Dunya was always yes, and I realized we really just started butting heads. I mean, this was a big deal for us. So it was like, okay, there's got to be a solution here. And so it was just kind of like, hey, how about we do this? How about we just set up a system? And I think the hesitation back then was, well, but they're 5 and they're 4. And it's like, yeah, but let's just teach them. I mean, they're kids. And we'd say it all the time. We only don't teach them when it makes it harder on us. But if it makes, right? I mean, so otherwise, if it makes it easy on us, we're so ready to teach them. And so we can't be lazy parents. We have to teach them. So the first couple of weeks, it was like Sunday morning would hit. We taught them. They're 5 and 4. And by like Tuesday, they're done with their cheats. Yeah, because they, have like 3 on Sunday and then another one Monday, Tuesday.
When they were doing it, you would not tell them anything.
No, we told them, but we'd explain it to them. And then by like Monday, but they were slowly understanding it. By Monday or Tuesday, they'd be done because they'd have 3 on Sunday. Right? And so the 3rd week, we had a birthday party on Saturday. They didn't have any cheats left. And so so the kids I'll never forget it. Kids are sitting on a bench and Dunya's cutting them cake. And I looked, I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm cutting them cake. I was like, but they don't have any cheats left. And I'm telling you, their eyes got so big and they're looking at me and I'll never forget it. And I was just like, they don't get any cheats.
How old were they at the time?
They were 5 and 4.
Okay.
And so, so this is like now a pivotal moment because now we're either going to hammer home our point or it's over.
Even at a birthday party in front of all those eyes, you didn't care.
Yeah, because you got to teach them.
Okay.
You got to teach them somehow. If your focus is discipline, then you have to be disciplined yourself in the teaching, right? But if I'm not disciplining the teaching, then what am I really teaching? Are you really is the system gonna grab? And so she's mad at me, and everybody there is yelling at me. Oh, you're being unreasonable and this and that.
Oh, really?
But now, like circle that back. If we pause my story for a second and think about society, I was wrong, right? Think about that. We're at a point in society where I'm wrong because I want to protect my kids' health. I'm only right if I want to give them 138 grams of sugar after eating pizza and bread. Right? Like, you ever seen a birthday party with the parents yelling at their kids? Like, hey, you can't have the dessert until you finish your food. And their food is pizza and bread. And it's like, no, just skip the pizza and bread. Let's leave those calories. There's no nutritional value there. Yeah. There's literally no nutritional value. Put it on the side. Let them eat the cake. At least it's half. At least it's half of what you're about to feed them. Just let them be.
It's half the damage.
100%. Because you're still at a calorie intake is still a big deal. Anyways, we can do this all day long.
Okay.
So coming back to it, we got to that story real quickly, that solution real quickly. So anyways, that day was kind of ruined. That birthday party was ruined, and the kids are
and
crying.
You stuck to your point. No cake.
It's not happening.
Okay.
But watch how smart kids are. The next morning, Sunday morning, Ahmad, he was 5 at the time. He comes up to me and says, Baba, I have a plan. I have no idea what this is about, by the way. We just woke up. I'm not, I'm still waking up. So I said, okay, what's your plan? And he said, every Sunday morning, I'm going to begin asking you what we have this week. I said, what do you mean? He said, like, what do we have? Do we have holidays? Do we have birthdays? I said, oh, he learned how to budget. Like that, he learned how to budget that quickly, right? So he just took this thing and he solved the problem right away, because we again, if you just let your kids think, they figure out the problem. So he said, do we have anything this week? And I was just like, no, I don't think so. He said, okay. So cool. He asked his mom, no, nothing. Cool. But now he started counting, and every Sunday for the last 3 years, he has not missed. Baba, what do we have this week?
Really?
What do we have this week? Every Sunday. Telling you, and it's been amazing, because now we don't even have the conversation anymore. How many cheats do you have left? 2. Cool. What do you want to do tonight? I don't want to cheat today. Cool. I want to cheat today. Great. It's amazing. It's taught them the honesty system. We don't ask. They tell us, hey, Baba, Amo Jafar gave me a piece of candy today, so I only have 3 cheats left. Or if they have none left and you give them a piece of candy, they'll put it in their pocket and they'll tell you, thank you, I can have it on Sunday.
Was the honesty like that between all 3 kids?
Yeah.
You never had like
they
doubts
actually
like
hold each
they
other
might
accountable.
lie? Okay.
They hold each other accountable. No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't. They come home, they tell us. I don't even ask. They come home and tell me. I had a cheat today, I only have 3 left. Cool, thanks. Don't even ask. It's amazing. It's actually amazing. And now our daughter, who's 4, Medina's 4, so as soon as she turned 4, we started talking to her about this before she was 4, telling her, when you turn 4, you're going to be on the cheat system too. And then as soon as she turned 4, now she will tell you. I promise you, she's 4. You ask her today, she'll tell you, I have 3 cheats left because I had one yesterday. It was Sunday.
Did you have any friends that use the same system with their kids?
Now
after
they
you see?
do. No, I mean, this was something we created, and I mean, maybe.
No,
but
I mean
don't know.
after you did it.
Yeah, we've heard from multiple people that they've instilled this in their household.
Do you still get criticism for it though at the same time?
I don't get criticism. I just, the whole societal, oh, you're being too hard. Oh, you're wrong. Oh, you should let them live. It's like, I am letting them live. I'm helping them live. As a matter of fact, right? Like I'm focusing my kids on nutrition so they understand it. But it's not like, hey, no, right? Like we don't talk to our kids like, hey, no, or hey, yes. It's, hey, no, because, right? Mm-hmm. You can have, red fruit is good because red fruit translates to your heart, which translates to blood and all that, right? And like, this is how we talk to our kids. It's not, no, you can't have sugar. No, it's bad for you. Yeah, of course. No, it's bad for you, and it's bad for you because the sugar makes your brain act like this, and because of this, and because of this. And I said, do you see how excited you just got? You just told me you're full. You don't want to finish your food, but you got excited about cake. Do you know why? That's your brain. That's your brain on drugs. Because it is drugs. I mean, when you think about it, like the concept of drugs and addiction and all of that, and you just study it, that's literally what happens to the kid's brain when they get excited about the sugars that they're about to have. And if you just stopped for a moment and disassociated giving them the treats and the sugar with love, what I say to parents is like, give them your time. Go play a game with them. Go play catch. They're going to remember that more than they're going to remember the cupcake. They're going to remember that more than the donut. Hey, I want to reward you. I'm going to take you to the movies. Or I'm going to go bowling with you. Hey, let's go to the park. You love to play basketball. Let's go to the park and play basketball. Do that with them. And just watch. And the compounding effects of the love that you give them over the supposed love that you give them, it's not even a comparison.
That's very I love that. Like the system it makes sense in every which way, but it's very hard. Right?
Mm-hmm. It was at the beginning.
I mean, still.
It was at the beginning, especially because we have families and cultures who grew up with, no, that's the way to love, right? And it's always somebody's bringing donuts and always somebody's bringing this and always somebody's bringing that. But I'd hope that our families, both mine and Dunya's, would tell you that potentially I've help them a little bit in the realization, whether they follow the same policy, because they don't. But hopefully, all of them would agree that our kids are separate, have separated themselves from the clan in that regard, that it's pretty amazing. And they all love it and they all think it's really cool, but none of them, none of them do it, but they all understand it now. And so I was probably looked at as kind of a jerk early on
Yeah.
when I used to say, no, you can't give them that. And no, my kids can't eat the piece of candy, because that wasn't common. It was just common to be able to give your loved ones anything you wanted,
Yeah.
and it was just always accepted. So I kind of had to be really protective early on to get over those. But once we did, I knew it was a temporary have to, because once we trained those habits, now they don't. Now they all understand that I'm maniacal, and they just let me be.
This stuff, why do you think more people don't adopt a system like yours where let's do healthy, let's do clean food, let's do pre-prepped meals that
A lot
are,
of reasons, man. A lot of reasons, and I wish I could get into them all in depth. But like,
We have time.
Again, societally, right? Like
Yeah.
societally, just starting at there. Like, first of all, the world has been trained to make everything as easy as possible, right? Like, hey Siri, tell me that time that I did this thing, or whatever it might be, I used to memorize all the phone numbers that I had. I don't memorize them because they're just in my phone, and I can say something like, "Hey, call this," and it just does it. So that's part of it. Is just as a society we're extremely lazy, and so cooking healthy and prepping healthy for kids going to school is a challenge, and it's time consuming. It didn't used to be that way when you only had one parent working and one person at home, but now we've got independent, which by the way I'm fully supportive of, obviously, as my wife is as hard a worker as anybody I know.
for those who don't know, Dunya was the first guest on this podcast. She's been on here.
She
Yeah.
was. And so I encourage anybody to go listen to her episode too, to just kind of reconcile our take, if you're interested in this whole thing. But I'm obviously extremely supportive of the dual gender role, right? And by the way, more than I can even explain, because I really genuinely love being with my kids as a father, right?
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to societally. So why don't the parents do it? It's the time it takes, the ease of just, grab some chicken tenders, or just, God, let's just make another peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which jelly has a lot of sugar and bread is really, really bad for you. And there's zero nutritional value in that. And probably more than 70% of the peanut butters in the world are complete garbage. But it's just ease. What's easy? How do I make it easy? And I used to have a place called Detroit Kid City. And Detroit Kid City was a coffee shop with a kids play place in the back. And I got to tell you, in the large majority of parents that came in there were amazing and really engaging with their kids. But unfortunately, I saw some of the worst. I saw some of the worst examples of parenting in that place.
So the parents would come in, order coffee, sit, and then the kids would play in the back.
Play. I can't tell you how many times I saw children that wanted to play with their parents, but didn't have that focus and attention. And it wasn't like parent was on laptop kind of thing. It was probably more like parent was on their Facebook or something like that. And we saw a lot of that. And I'm not judging.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not judging. Everybody needs an hour off, right? Sometimes it's nice to just be able to let your kids go and I'm sure the majority of the people in there it was their hour off. They just needed a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
right? But it's more societal in the sense that parenting is not full on, and that's why I believe we have mental issues. That's why I believe the pets who used to be great supplements to the family now have actually replaced the spots of children in some families. And why? It's because we spent so much time eagerly getting our kids out of the house, couldn't wait to be empty nesters, couldn't wait to just be alone again. And then it was like, oh, why don't our kids check on us? Why do we only hear from them on Sundays? Why do we only hear from them on Easters or on other holidays, right? I'll tell you why. Because the environment wasn't as such that this is their home forever, regardless of when they're gone. And I know that's something my parents have instilled with us. That's something I'm instilling with our kids. And again, I think the large majority of parents, so this is not a judgment thing, but I think our kids really need that societal, I think a lot of our kids need that parental support. that we have to battle a lot of issues that our parents didn't have to battle because of the things like technology, because of the way we eat, because of the way there are so many supplements allowed or substances allowed in the food system here that's not allowed in the rest of the world.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot, a lot. I mean, even just Google Kellogg. Google Kellogg or cereal USA versus Europe. If you just Google that.
I've been
and
to
look at a
Europe
picture.
before. Their cereal aisle is probably like 20% of the cereal aisle here.
Well, and even if it was the same, read the ingredients.
Yeah.
Read the ingredients of the products that are made for the world versus the products that are made for the US. And there's about triple the amount of ingredients in the US, most of which you need a PhD to understand. That's not what you're supposed to eat.
Yeah.
So like people ask me all the time, so what do you eat? Things that are one ingredients, single ingredient foods. Steak, what's the ingredient? Meat. Like, eggs, chicken, poultry, spinach. These things, they grew from the earth. They have. Now, am I perfect? No. By any stretch of the imagination, absolutely not. I've got my vices. French fries are really hard for me to avoid, although the last couple of months I've done a great job with that. But everybody, and I'll cheat once a month, once every 2 months. I might have a cup of coconut milk ice cream. I don't do dairy. But, something like that. But for me, because my brain is so trained to seek not the taste of food, but the benefit of food, my brain actually gets really excited. If you had like ice cream in a bowl next to a bowl of watermelon, I'm going for the watermelon 10 out of 10 times.
Oh, really?
It's not even close. Like it's not even, I don't even get excited. I see cookies. I look at this and I say, boy, if I put that in my body right now, it would really be, it would really be hurting me. Because everything you put in your body, here's something I always talk about. We were talking about the 4 F's. Finances, you can get lucky, you can either do a really great job or you can get, sometimes you can grow up and be the benefactor of some wealth. Your faith, it's kind of given to you. You're raised with it, your culture, it's all the stuff is given, right? But you can't be given your physique. You cannot be given your health. That is something only you can go earn by yourself.
Right.
Every single thing you put in your body, it either fuels you or it hurts you. It's one of the two, and there's nothing in between. There's nothing that's neutral. It's either this has zero nutritional value and it's eating up the space that's in your stomach, so now you don't have space to get the good nutrients that you need, or this is amazing and it's fuel, and here's what's the benefit. Here's what the benefit of it is going to be. There's no in between, and anybody that thinks otherwise is really just trying to brainwash themselves into something that's easy or lazy, or they're just not as committed to their health. But if people committed to their health, their physique, it's not about vanity. It's not just about, hey, I want to look better, but looking better, I will tell you, works 10 out of 10 times, because when you look better, you feel better. When you feel better, you walk into a room and you have conversations better. You have negotiations better. You're stronger with your convictions, your passion. You're easier to talk, and you've gained the respect of the room the minute you walk in. Because when somebody sees that you're that disciplined about your health, they realize this is a disciplined human being and I better be on my toes here.
Yeah.
But if you walk in and you're somebody that doesn't take care of yourself, somebody that has zero respect for yourself, when you don't have respect for yourself, it's harder to gain the respect of others. It really is. It's very challenging.
That is a form of respecting yourself.
100%.
When you take care of your health.
And I teach my kids that. I say that to my kids, and they would say that to you if you asked them. I tell them, this is the way you eat is a form of self-respect. So when you put something into your body, what is it doing for you? It's that simple. I mean, it really doesn't have to be harder than that. We are human beings. We are not made to endure the amount that we eat in this, especially in this country. I mean, society, this is an insane, what has happened to us, how you have to eat every 2 hours and you have to have these big meals, and it's like, you're not even hungry. Why are you eating? Well, it's 12 o'clock, but are you hungry? No, then why are you eating? Well, it's 12 o'clock. So what?
Can you walk me through how much and what you eat?
Yeah, so I intermittent fast. I've been on it for 7 years.
Okay.
I eat one time a day, maximum twice if I'm really hungry that day. But most of the time it's one big meal a day, and then maybe some fruits and vegetables.
When do you
a couple
take your
hours
meal?
later. It varies. Minimum. My meals are minimum 16 hours apart, but generally about 20 hours apart. And then every couple of weeks, I try to have at least 2 days where I don't eat.
Zero food.
Zero, just black coffee and water.
Okay.
And so it really, I mean, your body is like a machine. I mean, if you think about it like a car parts factory, right? If you have a car parts factory, what happens is you have a line and it's going at a certain pace. But if you put too many parts on the line, then everything gets messed up, right? Well, your body is the same exact way. If you unroll it and you make it like a production line, well, if you put way more food on it than you're supposed to, it's going to process slower. By processing slower, everything is getting backed up. By backing up, it's going to create all kinds of issues. I'm not a doctor, but this is actually logic. This is pretty simple, right? Like if you eat too much, it's going to back up your digestive system. It's going to back up your intestines. It's going to create all kinds of issues like we have in this country, like diabetes, like all these things. And then you have people that ignore their health and they only want Netflix and they only scroll social media and they only see perfection. And now they have mental issues. And it's like, yeah, you probably do have mental, or not mental issues, but mental health issues. And why do you have mental health issues? Well, how about we slow down the eating? How about we hit the gym, get really strong, get really confident in ourselves, and then go from there. But I mean, that's a again, just wrapping up this whole issue I have with society. But that's why I'm so maniacal about parenting. And it's not I parent harder so Dunya can parent less. It's we're in a world where both parents have to do an extreme amount of parenting. I don't give more to my kids than most dads give to their kids so that my wife doesn't have to give as much as a mother, right? They need the motherly love as much as they need the fatherly love. And when they have both, you're setting your kids up for success. And that's the reality. And I'm hard on my kids. I raise the hell out of my kids. I make my kids exercise. I make my kids eat right. I make them, we're not no device parents because devices are a huge part of their future.
It's integrated into the world now. It's very hard.
The idea is to train them on how to use it to their benefit. Again, like food. I can eat a lot of it, but if 90% of it is bad, then it's bad. But if 90% of it is good, we're in pretty good shape here, right?
Right.
Same thing with devices. As long as 90% of it is good, you're on track. And they have to learn how to use it for their benefit. And so that's really important to us too. But I mean, we parent the hell out of them at every step of their way. And we've got great support all over us. We got grandparents, all four of their grandparents are all around us. We have aunts and uncles all around us. And as much as that is, we don't do a lot of babysitting and leaving, we do our best to, one of us is with them as much as possible because that's what parenting is.
Yeah.
So.
And going back to your point, now that you're talking about it, it's not even looking at how parents now are doing it wrong, but even looking at grown-ups nowadays and their habits. It says a lot about how they were raised on those systems that you were just talking about.
Well, in the world, and again, the world has changed. So, right, like one of the things I really try hard to be careful about is I hate to use the word right or wrong because my method might be different than your method, and that's perfectly okay.
And they can both work.
Absolutely. They can both be true at the same time. We have to it's incumbent on us as parents to raise our kids for their future, not for our upbringing. If I raise my kids the same way I was raised, I'm raising them for a completely different world. I'm not setting them up for success. The world is changing at a rapid pace. Our kids have to understand how to navigate that world. And so, doesn't mean I have a crystal ball, doesn't mean I'm perfect, doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean all that other stuff. It just means the way we approach it is it's very futuristic. How do we take the principles, the values that were instilled in us and all of that and remain and keep those and modernize those for the world that my kids will take those forward and appreciate them, right? That's really important.
Yeah. So let's say summer just ended, summer vacation just ended. Everyone got back to school now. But talk to me about how their summer went. So how do you make them spend their time in the summer?
So they're very outdoor driven. I mean, summers. I mean, for us, it's, they do a lot of swimming. They're in golf camp once a week, so they do golf. They do basketball practices every week. They're on basketball recreational teams. We've got an orchard, a tree orchard in the backyard, about 28 fruit trees. So they They go out there and they do a little bit of fruit picking. They help around projects on the house. We take walks every single day, twice a day. Most of the days we do like a 2 mile walk. It's 1 mile walk to my parents' house and then back from my parents' house. So we'll swing by there, we'll grab a sandwich and keep walking. But it's very outdoors driven. I mean, that's what we do. We travel a little bit, mainly for my focus and my work, and I like to use the summer to integrate them into my business. That's about it. But we're as much as we can, we're outdoors.
Now, going from food and exercise to school, what are your thoughts about the school systems?
It's important as parents to make sure that we're raising our kids and allowing them to thrive on things that they really like. You know, go be a doctor, go be a dentist, go be a lawyer. Amazing. And if they really want to do that, amazing. And they're going to thrive. They're going to do great financially. They're going to be able to make great impacts because of that. They're going to have great lifestyles, all of that, right? That's not for everybody. And not everybody wants to do that. Some people might like real estate like I do. Some people might like, videography and whatever it might be. I think it's really important to set your kids up to do something that they absolutely love. They're going to reach all their potentials in the world. The economics of college have changed. The economics of our education system have changed drastically versus when I was growing up, when it was like $6,000-$7,000 at a really good school per semester. And now undergraduate degrees alone are anywhere between $70,000 and $100,000.
Right.
Then you've got another $100,000 of graduate school at least. So you're like $200K in debt. You're 6 to 8 years, depending on industry. So you're 6 to 8 years in. That's pretty bad to go out and get a job that's going to average you 50, 60K a year. That math doesn't make sense to me. That just doesn't make sense to me like it used to. It doesn't.
Yeah.
We are raising our kids to understand that, we absolutely support the education. We want them to have an education. That's really, really critical and important to us. But I'd be lying if I told you that I'd be devastated if my kids didn't want to go to college. I'd be okay with that. It wouldn't mean that it wouldn't mean they'd have a free pass. They would have to replace it. There would have to be a compelling reason that they're not going to college, right? I'm a maniac about masterminds. I love masterminds. They've changed my life in the last 2 years. And I used to do a lot of seminaring and conferencing and masterminding for my corporate job. And I was great at doing it for my corporate job. And when I learned that I could go do that on my own and generate a network, relationships, friendships, people that push me in every facet of those 4 F's, I've started maniacally masterminding. And I love the word maniacally, obviously, right? But if my kids tell me they want a mentor and they want to go through all a mastermind is, a mastermind, to give it a phrase, because people hear me talk about this a lot, it goes back to Napoleon Hill. And if you don't know who Napoleon Hill is, I encourage anybody here to Google him, buy his books, and read all his books. But this goes all the way back to Napoleon Hill. What a mastermind is at its core, it's basically get a bunch of entrepreneurs or thinkers together and give them each a chance to go around a room and talk about their current challenges and get help from everybody else in the room. And so if my kids decide to go that route on the education path as they grow, I'd be okay with it. It has to be the right one, and I'm going to help them do the due diligence to seek the right one, because there's a lot of phonies out there.
How are you going to do that?
I know how to do my due diligence on them now because I'm as experienced as I am with them, right? So that's important. And again, this wouldn't be anything. I hope my kids don't listen to this for at least 8 years, because I don't want to put them in the mindset of, I don't want to begin to shape their thought process today, because the world is going to change 10 times over between now and when they're in college.
So you don't have conversations with them about what they want to do in the future now?
Yeah, we do, but they're very entrepreneurial conversations. So we don't want our kids to only think about one method, which is college, job, retire. That's not the cycle we want them to be locked in on. That option will be available for them if that's their passion. That's great. But we're both entrepreneurs, and we raise them that way. And like Ahmad binge watches Shark Tank. When he does have device time, his preference is Shark Tank over anything. And he's 8, and it's awesome.
That's a good show.
Love it. It's amazing. It's awesome.
What do you think is the biggest threat facing our children today?
The government, our society.
In what way?
Um, you know, we grew up in a really simple world. We grew up in a world where, you know, family values led most, right? And there wasn't so much bigotry on the religion side of life. I'm of the ilk, as long as you're a spiritual being, I don't care what faith you are, you're, 9 chances out of 10, you're a pretty good person. And I think the closer we got to faith, it was good. The closer we were to our families, in God we trust was something that we said in school all over elementaries and public schools, and that's okay in all religions and faiths, that saying, in God we trust. And we're not allowed to say those things anymore. And I think we just need to get back to our core values, man. I mean, I think society has pushed it's just everything that's happening in society is, whether it's intended this way or not, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist enough to believe this, but, stripping people of family values, population control, making it harder for people to produce. I mean, why are young males now more affected than ever by infertility? Why? I mean, is it in the vaccines? Is it in the food? It's not just from breathing the air, I don't think. I don't know, maybe it is. I'm not an environmentalist, but it's probably the food. It's probably the vaccines, and all of them, by the way, not just the most recent one. These things have affected males. So like at 2025, look, just go Google, young males and infertility, and you'll see a huge uptick in that over the last several years. So why is that happening? Why is that allowed? Why have we not caught that trend and stopped it, right? The government was so fast to say nobody's allowed to leave their home, everybody has to wear a mask, and everybody has to get medicine. And we poured resources among resources to promote this forcible action, right? What if we took those same amounts of resources and said, go exercise, and you have to go exercise, and made it a requirement that you exercised, or you weren't allowed out of your house and all this stuff, right? Imagine the world if a bunch of savages were walking up and down the street. Remember, like if you look at like old like biblical books and movies and whatnot, everybody's walking around with a toga and they're chiseled and they got no body fat, and it's like, imagine that. Imagine we put the resources into health, eat right, walk more, do this, do that. You're required, you're forced, and all this, because we've proven that we can require and force them to do it when it comes to padding the pharmaceuticals pockets. What if we did the same in protecting our health? I would like to see us put more effort into health, into family, and I think that starts with coming back to understanding there's two genders in this world. And for everybody that wants to probably pipe down on me and say, don't you believe in science? Yes, I believe in science. That's why you're born the way you're born. And that's kind of that. I mean, I think we just need to go back to our core family values that used to drive this world. I read a book when we were having boys. Right when I found out we were having boys, somebody suggested, or our first one was a boy, somebody suggested the book Boys Adrift. And I read the book, and it's incredible. And it's something that really helped me dive deep into understanding what you're raising. That book details a lot about, the challenges our boys are facing in the world these days. First of all, everything is so protective, right? We're not raising masculinity. We're not raising, somebody was mean to you today, and now that kid's gonna, now all kinds of, it's like all this protecting. Go figure it out. Like, just go conflict resolute. Go figure out how to deal with things that are challenges in your life. Again, go get tougher. Go work out. Go be at the gym. Go be on. Kids used to play sports and ride on their bike and be all outdoors. That's not the case anymore. And I said this already, but my point in hammering that home is Boys Adrift really helped me understand all the different things I was going to be facing. So, even coming down to like video games, when you die in a video game, guess what? You could just press start and start all over again. And you don't really lose. Well, in life, if you keep setting yourself up for death, eventually you're going to just die. And so it made it really easy to just win without trying.
Yeah.
And so, and it took that away. And then you think about, you know, the little boys that are in school, and, you know, 5-year-old is in school, and, you know, there's the teacher is telling the boy, you know, trace these letters. And the boy's like, yeah, but there's a choo-choo train in the back, and I want to play with the train. And the teacher says, well, trace the letters. And the boy, because as males, we're actually raised to be independent. And I always tell the story of the alligator.
What's the story of the alligator?
So alligators, if you learn about alligators, are very territorial. And if you find a small little body of water like a pond, and there might be an alligator in there. Well, if there's a male alligator in there, that's it. It's over. It says pond. You're not coming in there. You try to come in there as a male, you're getting it. You know, and if you try to come in there as a female, you're not coming in there as a female. It's mine. And if it's a female's though, if it's a female's pond, and the male alligator comes, he will take it. So masculinity has a place in life, and it's okay to believe that and understand that, still with respecting our feminine counterparts, because they have even more. Why are male territorial? So they can
Provide, protect.
Protect. We are at our core. We want to protect our being, our team. So you know, the male is a very independent creature, right? And so when you think about in school at 5 years old, and the teacher is forcing him to trace the letter, when he has so much energy, he wants to just go play, and he starts crying. And now they say he has ADD and ADHD, and now put him on medicine and talk to a psychologist and all this stuff. Look, all respect to those that really need to go down that path. For the large majority, my belief is that kid's not ADD and that kid's not ADHD. He just wants to play with a freaking train set. That's what it is. Now, a girl might act differently because a girl is more empathetic. A female is more empathetic at their core. So I don't want to do this, but I'll do it because I know the teacher wants me to, and I know my parents want me to, and all this stuff. But the boys aren't that way. And so if you look at the rates of ADD and ADHD in our country, especially in young boys relative to other countries, it's alarming.
Do you keep up, do you purposely keep up with all of these statistics and all these studies? Do you actively look for them and make sure that you're always updated on them?
Yeah, I think it's important. If for people that actively track that kind of data for their business, so they can continue to pivot their business and continue to operate their lives and whatever it might be, if you're not putting that same level of game planning into your kids, you're missing your biggest opportunity. Your kids are your biggest opportunity at success in life, not financially. And overall, what else is there, right? That they're my kids.
Yeah.
You know?
What are the conversations between you and your spouse when it comes to raising the kids? How do you you're calling it a game plan. You're saying that it's legit. We have to put pen on paper. How are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And in a household where you're very, very busy, and when your wife is very, very busy, how do you kind of pivot?
I'll tell you, we're seasoned at this now. We've been 4 strong years almost of the same kind of strategy. And so we don't actually have to talk much about it anymore, unless we feel like one of us is going to make an exception to the rule. Then we make it a point that the kids understand that Mama and Baba are talking about this. We're going on vacation, so maybe we should do 2 cheats a day, because we're going to be so active, and we're going to be at the ocean all day and swimming all day, and we're going to burn a bunch of calories. We're going to be very active, blah, 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 blah. Well, cool. Let's talk about maybe, we're going to allow it for the next 4 days, right? And we make it a point that they understand we're having that conversation, so they know that one parent isn't just unilaterally making that decision, so that they always have respect for both sides, and they know they can't get one more here, more there.
Yeah.
So we're really, really on the same page.
But what about even values wise and how you want to raise them, aside from the food? How do you have conversations of, if you see your kid misbehave or do something really bad, and you want to talk to their mother, or even even like how much time he spends with you, how you're how you're splitting the time between you and your wife when it comes to the kids, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you kind of deal with that?
Very transparently, even with our kids. Even if our kids ask us a question, but mama said this or baba said that, and we don't have the right answer, we're very honest to let them know, well, let us talk about it, and then we'll get back to you. You know, so we're very transparent with them. We help them. Our kids are. We don't really shelter our kids from our difficult conversations, and even sometimes we hash those out in front of the kids, so they understand the logic that's behind our decisions. I would say from a time perspective, we probably spend, I think just naturally I spend a little bit more time with them because my work is remote. My business is, I just run my business out of my house. I don't have an office that I go to, and Dunya does. So I think naturally I spend just a little bit more time with them. That's probably equaled off somewhere along the line when I'm going to my football games or playing golf or doing something. But, we don't track that stuff as hard. What's important to us, and I think, as you think about it, as the world has evolved and divorce rates have gone high and things have just kind of lost their wheels, the reason for that, in my opinion, is communication. We are built on a very strong foundation of communication where we do a really, really, really good job of that. And we understand if one of us needs a break, we make sure that we have it. If one of us needs a little time away, I'm
all of this stuff is addressed between you two.
100%.
Okay.
And it's really, we communicate really, really, really well about this stuff. I think that's the core of communication. But also, there's an acceptance that you have to have. The world is different, right? 20 years ago, women weren't working. That wasn't a thing. It was only the income of the male. Well, the world has changed. Inflation has changed. Cost of living has changed. The cost of the house has changed. And so now, and women are working now. Women are getting educations, and all that is happening. And so as society has changed, you have to shift you have to shift your household with society. Again, you can't raise your kids for your past, but for the future. We also have to raise our household for the future.
Right.
And that's important too, right? So there are times, why was I able to leave corporate as quickly as I did? Because Dunya, I don't actually know if it was quick. I mean, she launched her firm in 2012. It was 2019 that it really got very stable. So it took us 7 years of really reinvesting. And as the firm really began to be very strong, that's when I could peel away from corporate and become entrepreneurial myself. We had to first rely on my income as a stability. Now we could rely on hers, and now we probably ebb and flow. And I think the reason I'm going there with that is what's also important is as those have evolved, so has what's happening in the house. Because as the female is out working and not prepping meals all day long anymore and not cleaning homes all day anymore and not just doing that, but out being a productive member of society, well, the male better pick up the slack. Because if he doesn't, the house is falling apart. And then what message are you sending to your kids then? It's okay to live in a pigsty. Which, by the way, I'm not talking about toys over here. I don't care about toys. I mean, we're just talking about just messes in general. Did you put your plate away? Were you, things of that nature? Are we still making sure that our kids are getting their homework done? Are we still making sure that, and I don't mind playing a huge role in that, even as a male. Why? Because our goals are not singular in our house. Our goals are collective. In our house, it's important that we make X amount of money so that we cover Y expenses. We want our kids to do X, Y, and Z. And
do you have all these numbers? Do you have all these numbers down?
Yeah.
Know how much money you have to make this month.
Yeah, 100%. I know our break even. I know it all, right? And that's all important because, again, it doesn't matter for us. We don't care where is the income coming from. Is it coming in?
It's the same pool that it's
coming into one bucket. Where's the parenting coming from? Sometimes I got a little more time with them. Sometimes I might be traveling and she's, I've got to go check out our 5 properties in Arizona. Well, who's got that when I'm gone? Obviously her, right? So all of these things are going to ebb and flow. So I think it's what's so important, so important, critically, especially in this day and age, you got to have a goals list. If you have a job, you have goals at your job and you're rated based on that, on how you went about your daily tasks that were required of you. Do you do that at home? Because this is where it's important. This is where it's most important. You can't let something else succeed so that this fails. If this fails,
everything else is going to fail.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important.
if someone comes up to you and tells you that they need some tips to communicate better with their partner, what are some of the things that you picked on over the years that you feel like work 100%?
You know, that's a great question, because now we don't have a lot of routine about it anymore, because we're so good at doing it. Because what we did early on, we made sure that we scheduled our dates. Literally, we scheduled our dinner dates. And we did that. Why? Because we had to know, and they weren't scheduled to the day per se, but we knew that every week we were going out. We were going out once a week at night, and it was just me and her. And why? Because these were the conversations. These are where we talk. These are where we. You can't get married, have kids, and then forget to keep building your relationship with your spouse. If you forget to keep nurturing that relationship becomes stagnant and old, and you forget who the two of you are. And we see this all the time. So we never stopped building our relationship, even till now. I mean, we're still changing as humans. We're still evolving. We're still, tomorrow my kids will be older than they are today. And so it's new challenges. And so we have to keep learning. We have to keep growing. We have to keep doing all that. And so communication is the most important thing. So I would say time block it and schedule it until you become really, really, really good at it. Because when you understand that and you understand your goals and you really talk about what your real dreams are, and then when you have big goals, don't laugh them off. Like, really, really, that's what you want to do? Yeah, I didn't realize you were thinking that big. That's really what you want to do? Yeah, well, how can I help you? Let's talk about that. How are we going to do that? What do we got to be doing in 5 years? What does your day have to look like to hit that goal? Yeah? Well, in 4 years, what do we have to be doing in 4 years to be doing that in 5 years? Got it. Well, if we're going to be doing that in 4 years, what do we got to be doing in 3 years? Well, then what do we got to be doing in 2 years? And so you you start with the end in mind, reverse engineer it, and you build out your plan. And now that you really understand each other, you can really start to help each other be supportive with each other's goals, right? But if I don't really understand your goals and where they're coming from, I might look at them as too big and unrealistic and probably not going to happen. And yeah, you say that all the time or all that. But I can really identify an issue with your goal, right? And say, well, how are you going to do that if this, right? And so now we can start game planning, and I can become part of your goal and you can become part of my goal. That's just.
Now, back to like the scheduling dates part. Did it feel weird at first? Because like the picture perfect way, like how you see it in movies, is like it's spontaneous. So you want to go on a date tonight? Okay, let's do it. Let's go get dressed, whatever. But does it feel weird when you put it in a calendar and be like?
No, man. I'll tell you, maybe early on it did, I guess. A little bit, but what you really begin to understand and realize, the more I got around people that are living exactly the way I want to, from the success of all four of those F's, everything was time blocked. And as a matter of fact, their time blocking with their spouse was even at a higher level and more deep than their businesses. And it was because you have to continue to commit to that relationship over and over and over and over. And I can tell you, early on in our relationship, Dunya and I, we probably weren't very good at that before we had kids. We were together for 5 years before we had kids. And so early on, we probably were not very good about that kind of stuff.
You found a lot of challenges in that?
Yeah, for sure. And because of that, it translated into a lot of, early on in our marriage, like any marriage probably, that's where the bulk of our headbutting happened, and where we got into a lot of arguments and, some of those things that you experience early on in your marriage. We don't have that anymore, because we're always on the same page and we always understand each other, and we know for sure. The one thing that Dunya and I know for sure is that we are so committed to our relationship because of the way we treat our relationship, because I will not put more effort into growing my business than I will into growing my relationship with her. That takes first precedent. I'll give you an example. I wanted to grow, as I'm growing my short-term rental business, I had a couple people that I really wanted to partner with. And I bring in, part of my business is I bring in private money from silent partners, and they are my partners on every deal. Well, there was a group of people that I really wanted to work with, great friends, have really developed a great relationship with them, great people, all of it, but they're in Vegas. They're in Las Vegas. And they wanted me to be their guy in Las Vegas. They wanted to invest in me and have me build out a portfolio there. For me, knowing, I'm spiritual. I would say spiritual enough, and dunya's at a much higher level, much deeper faith of deeper level of her faith, practicing faith on a daily basis than I am, which has motivated me to become even better, by the way. But that's a different story. She's still way above me on that. So what I know is that just the aura of Vegas and what comes along with that, the wildness, the partying. And yeah, well, here and there you can get like a really good group of people that are coming in corporate or they want to golf or whatever. But for the most part, what happens in Vegas, as they say, stays in Vegas. And there's a reason for that, right? And knowing that this infringed a little bit on Dunya's comfort level from a faith perspective, it's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to grow there. Not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just really important to always know that was more important to me than my business.
Okay.
And by taking that step, by building that wall and not crossing that line, she's never said it, but I know how much that means to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you find challenges with all the system that you have in place? Where do you still find challenges that you feel like you can still work on in your relationship?
I would like her to take her health more seriously, which she has been the last couple of weeks. And I hope that continues as a trend. But boy, that's more, it's not selfish. It's selfish for her. I yearn to see her in a really healthy state from a nutrition and my back is always hurting, my head is always hurting. It's because you're not working out. If you work out, your muscles are going to be stronger, and your muscles being stronger means you're going to be healthier, and your body's going to be able to endure a lot more. And so, but that's a tough one for me because, we have an excellent relationship. We really understand each other. We've gotten to a great point. The kind of the point we all yearn for is getting through those early years,
Yeah.
and then at a point where maybe once or twice a year you push the button and one of you yells at the other one. But we've got a really good relationship.
That's
and
beautiful.
I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
We're pretty blessed.
That's a
from
good
that
answer,
perspective.
actually.
Yeah, we're pretty
Yeah.
blessed from that perspective.
That's good. And now I'm kind of here gonna pivot back to the kids and kind of end it there. I see that when I see you with your kids, you're very present. When they're asking you a question, you lean down and you really want to listen to what they're saying. But you have 3 kids, and all 3 of them have very different personalities. So how do you kind of change between Ahmad's personality and to Ahmad's personality to what Medina wants? Like how do you do that?
Yeah. I think it's well, first of all, I'm certainly not perfect. I appreciate you, but I'm far from perfect. I do my absolute best. I know that. And I could always do better. So I got to lead with that. But I would say, like anything, you just really be like Ahmad. I know I can be really tough on him, right? I can tell him everything he did wrong in a basketball game. I coach his basketball team. I can tell him everything he did wrong, and I can tell him why it hurt the team, and that it was really unproductive, and he needs to change the way he practices. And he'll take that, and he'll go and he'll implement it, right? I tell all that to Ahmad. He's probably mad at me by the second sentence, and so it's really you do, but it's like anything. It's like building relationships with your friends.
Yeah.
You build relationships with your kids, and you have to understand what works for some. Again, not that I'm perfect. It's always a work in progress.
I would assume a lot of it's trial and error.
A lot of it is trial and error, and a lot of it is day by day too, right?
Yeah.
And whatnot. And how are they feeling? How am I feeling? Who's irritable today? And what's going on? But the one thing I always say is man, I'll tell you what. I will never, ever, ever be shy to say I'm sorry to my children.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake and I overreact, because it's natural, it's human nature, it's gonna happen. I am not too shy or afraid to say I'm sorry to my kid. People are afraid to do that. I encourage it, because if you admit your mistakes to your kid, first of all, what you're telling your kid is it's okay to not be perfect in life. It's going to happen. Acknowledge it and take accountability and ownership of that. But if you teach your kid not to take accountability and not take ownership. And when you're disciplining them and they won't do it, and then you wonder why they're not accountable,
It's because of you.
like start with it, right? You can't hold them accountable. You can't ask them to hold themselves accountable if you're not holding yourself accountable. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with I make mistakes with my kids. I grab them, I pull them, I make a joke out of it. I'm really sorry I yelled at you. I didn't want to, but I had the yell monster in me, and you deserved it. And then they laugh about it, right? But then I take a second and I explain to them. Even I do a better job of explaining, obviously, than I did the first time with a more calm head, and then we can hammer home the point. And our relationship is so good. My relationship with my kids is so good because of that. Because they know if I do mess up, they already know that I'm going to come back and make it right. Like that's something that I'll do.
Do you have deep conversations with your kids?
Always. We don't do a lot of baby talking. We talk to our kids like they're adults. It's important.
I want you to think about a time where one of your kids made you very emotional.
Oh man, I got it. I already got it.
Tell me.
So, I don't know if this is the emotional you're looking for, but so last year, during the first full year of COVID, that full year where they weren't sure what was going to happen with schools and sometimes they're going to be off, sometimes we homeschooled them that year. And we loved it, and it was great, and it worked really, really well. And then the next year came along, and we put them back in school because they really wanted to go back to Maya. That's where they were before they homeschooled. They really wanted to go back with their friends, so we put them back in school. And Medina was at home that year. Well, then so that was 2 years ago now. So then last year we decided at the beginning of the year we were gonna homeschool the boys. We put Medina in Maya, preschool, and we homeschooled the boys. I didn't have time. Dunya and I, either one of us had time. So what we did is we brought in a teacher. So we took away all their friends and we replaced the teacher. It wasn't Mama and Baba teaching them. It was just a teacher. And we took away their friends. So they got this, I could see it in their faces. They were so depressed. And I work from home, so I would be in the other room and I could see it. They were just depressed. They were lonely. And so the third week of school, Medina had a performance, and it was a preschool through third grade. And Ahmad would have been in third grade, Ahmad in first. So their classes were in this. So we went to the school at 10 a.m. and we see the performance, and they're like hugging their friends. They're so happy to be there. This is their home. This is where they belong, and they're hugging their teachers and all that. And it was just like, oh man, what did I do? Like you could see it, And it's important as a parent. You see, you're not perfect. You're not always going to make the right decisions, but you have to be willing to be open to making changes. And so, I begged the principal, and she's telling me she doesn't have room, and she's gonna try, but she's gonna have to get back to me. She didn't think she has room. Later, a couple days later, she told me she did have room. We were able to get him back in. But that day, we're driving home, and I was hoping the kids didn't hear that conversation, and they had heard that conversation. And so here's Ahmad. And we're in the car. It's very quiet. And he says to me, "Hey, Baba." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I kind of heard your teacher," or what the principal had said was she had room for Ahmed. She didn't have room for Ahmad. And so he said, "Baba, if they have room for Ahmad, you really should put him in." And so here's him making the selfless decision to say, I know by doing this, I'm going to be alone. Right? And he made the selfless decision. And it was like, man, I almost cried. And I told him it wasn't going to happen. Or either together, we'd make a new decision next year. But that was the best. And it was, for him to be so selfless and love his siblings and care about them more than himself, meant the world to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was awesome.
I'm gonna ask you one final question. I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Dunya, the final question, and it's: I hope you're here for a very long, healthy life, but one day you're not gonna be here, and in 20 years, say 25 years, your kids are going through a hard time, and you're not here anymore, and they stumble upon this video. And they're listening to you talk. What would you tell Ahmad, Ahmed, and Medina?
1% better every day. be a good person, be a great person. Don't forget to give and give again before or without ever expecting anything in return. Just 1% better every day, man. Don't ever stop. You've never become good enough. Always try harder. Because the harder you try, the harder that your kids are going to see that, and they're never going to stop trying then too. They're going to understand what consistent growth means.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, Fouad. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. This
Of
means the
course.
world.
Of course.
Love it.